Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Steve Sawyer here from the Developmental Trauma Training Institute. After, almost a month break there, I'm back here with you all. And just want to say thank you to each of the Developmental Trauma Training Institute team members who did some beautiful Facebook Lives for us. And always a reminder that those are all available on our YouTube channel to follow up from. This week I wanted to take some time. I'm coming to you live from the Rosebud Lakota Reservation here, and on my travels eastbound, and wanted to talk today about lateral aggression. For those of us that have grown up in environments that have scarcity, poverty, and then households that have lots of aggression in them, the natural programming of growing up in these environments gets deeply embedded in our nervous system in the fight response. And fight response isn't talked about as detailed often as it can be. People kind of say those words, fight, flight, and freeze, and fawning these days. There's more there too that I speak about, but when it comes to lateral aggression has often been studied and been witnessed in communities that are survivors of genocide, war, and then when there's war in your own household, when you grow up in a household where there's a lot of conflict, there's either domestic violence or extreme parental aggression, the fight response becomes programmed in as a survival response deeply within the body and in the nervous system. And it puts us in a space of aggressive response to conflict. So when conflict arises, we are programmed early in life in how to respond to that conflict. And growing up in a household with a veteran and aggressive individual, early on, a lot of my early programming was as a fighter, a boxer, I was a Golden Gloves fighter. That was how that fight response was programmed into me. And the natural response to high stress then is to become aggressive. For those of you that grew up in households where there was extensive aggression happening, oftentimes people will also become fight responding and programmed with the freeze response, because to become invisible in an aggressive environment, to be still and kind of blend into the wall is a way of camouflaging inside of that environment. So when you grow up in an aggressive household, that aggressive nature that happens, there are various responses that we can become programmed with, but the fight response particularly, is aggression is met with more aggression. So people posture up, they become threatening, they become louder, and oftentimes when people hear about fight response when it comes to trauma, think direct aggressive physical action, which can be an attribute of fight response. But to be argumentative is a huge part of that, and this is where all of the lateral aggression and violence that we see in communities that have survived genocide and war times often start to attack each other instead of being unified. This was studied heavily in the Holocaust. We see it in our Native communities extensively, where that fight response isn't just against the oppressor or the oppression or the system that's oppressing, but towards each other. It's a way of surviving and taking power and control into one's hands. And people will do that to make sure their needs and their own survival is being able to be preserved. And Samuel Butler, he said that self-preservation is the first law of nature. And so in that, when we look at communities, Native communities, we see it in the wartime communities, we see it amongst even the Jewish communities that survived the Holocaust and the ongoing genocidal processes in Native communities here, that the worst aggression is towards each other. And in that blood feuds, ongoing aggression towards each other is a way of preserving a pecking order in a group that's surviving. So the more aggressive you are, the more scary you are, the more alpha you are. When we study wolves, the alpha wolf has to enforce his position by aggression, and anybody who starts to challenge that or is directly aggressively attacked in a way that it causes sub-alphas or other pack members to stand down. And so lateral aggression is a huge attribute in our entire country at this point. And unfortunately, it's usually within the population that's being oppressed. So being oppressed is a form of alpha, and the sub-alphas will fight below that alpha presence, that oppressive, controlling presence, to establish their position. And so when sub-alphas are fighting amongst themselves, they're fighting for that next level of hierarchy inside of the community or that pack. And that ensures their self-preservation. And something that goes along with this wolf pack mentality that I talk a lot about when it comes to developmental trauma is the appeasement response. So how do I appease an aggressor that's in front of me so that I don't become the direct individual impacted by that aggression that the alpha is maintaining? And so we see that in pecking orders of government, and then and then inside of the community. So this fight response, this ongoing state of lateral violence and aggression, I do a keynote called Endless Venom. And Endless Venom, it shows a snake's fangs with venom dripping off of it. Is a presentation I give a lot about how fight response manifests inside of communities in a hierarchical model that aligns with wolf packs and those things. And unfortunately, it keeps people in a repressed and controlled place that holds everybody down. There's kind of the metaphor of crabs in a pot, a boiling pot, and as a crab tries to climb out of the bucket or the pot, the other crab will grab it by the leg and pull it back in, trying to get itself out of the bucket or the boiling pot of water. And so when you grow up in an aggressive household, this can play out amongst siblings, against each other, in that place of trying to establish pack hierarchy inside of the household. So when there's a primary aggressor inside the household and domestic violence, you often see this play out in siblings. And then this becomes generational throughout time. Families against families in a community that's affected by, extreme oppression and violence. So families against families, communities against communities. And lateral aggression starts with judgment, really first. What somebody else is doing is wrong, or etc. And then we follow that action then with judgment, and then unifying amongst that judgment. And unfortunately, and fortunately, social media has incredible influence and powers today. But we see this extensively in, I was messaging with somebody today, amongst Facebook wars, attacking people that we don't know individually, we don't know their life story. And in that, the spats of politics, etc., that are going on social media are all forms of trying to establish one's position as right, as in a place of judgment. And in that, what's the solution? I always want to talk about the solution on this feed. The solution is unity. It's to be able to put the judgment down. Judgment and inflation of the sympathetic arousal or stress response, of fight response, to be able to address that in its earliest inception, and then meet with compassion and seeking to understand one's position without having to fight it, because their story has meaning. It has a lesson for each of us. It always does. And there's always a story behind what's happening. So judgment amongst, even a sibling or a family member, judgment of a community, judgment of people that are not the same as us or look different than us. The opposite of that judgment is to seek to understand, to make relations with. I love Gene Denelk's teachings on that, of making relations with our trauma, making relations with each other. And to make relations means to really seek to understand. And then when there's injury or past history that drives the conflict, to seek that forgiveness. Don Coyes from the White Bison Movement talks a lot about forgiveness is the highest prayer, and in that to make forgiveness of all wrongs that happen. Most people teachings from the Four Agreements are doing the best they can with what they know, and in that to seek to understand from that higher knowing of seek to understand and also work through things conversationally, connectedly. So for those of you that grew up in developmental trauma households, aggressive households, is to work and continuously work for that higher healing. This heals generations when we make peace in our families and in our communities. And the lateral aggression that happens in our communities just keeps people from rising up together in a unified way. And so with that, it's all about coming back to our heart. I talked about that a lot on all of the feeds, etc. Is coming back to our heart, not our mind. Gene also says this, the longest journey is from our head to our heart. To go to our heart and then be in a centered, stabilized place. The techniques I've shared on his YouTube channel a lot: heart breathing, heart-focused breathing, and then going and meeting anything conflict-wise, tension-wise amongst our own family, with a seeking to understand and seeking to make relations with the conflict that's there. That's how we heal ourselves. That's how we heal our families. That's how we heal our generations ahead. And this is a profound shift from being in that aggressive state. So the opposite of aggression, right, is compassion. So to meet with each other at a compassionate level, when mistakes happen or judgments are happening, we have to reverse that to come from a compassionate, heart-based, heart-focused place. And love wins all, as they say. And in that, to seek to understand with love and compassion from our heart can end some of the biggest long-term generational family line long conflicts, is to come with compassion and come from our heart, and not from our mind and our perception. Judgment begins in the frontal lobes of the brain, the thinking part of the brain, and then it causes reaction in our nervous system and causes us to often forego our heart. So if we stop and come to our heart from our thinking about a situation and come to our heart and go with a compassionate response to anyone that we're in conflict with, all relationships are healable, all of them. Generations of trauma inside of a household is healable. It's fully healable, but we have to come to our heart for that first step to begin. And so to go to my sibling with a compassionate heart when there's been conflict, my sister, we have to work through things in our families, and that's not wrong. I talk a lot about the model of healing, of relationship. We have a connection, and in all relationships, breaks happen. Something happens, somebody lets someone down, somebody makes a mistake, or they make a mistake with their highest knowing at that point, make the mistake, and then a break happens in a relationship. So then what do we do with that break in that relationship? It's all about repair. And my friend Dr. Gabor Mate, we speak together on and off together in panels, etc. he asked me a question one day when I was thinking about my relationships with my son, and he said, "Do you repair better?" And he always comes from poignant words. His books and information are profound and deep. When he asked me, "Do you repair better?" I had to review my whole childhood and think about how repair was taught or used in my family. Do we repair better? Do we make an effort when we find out that we're wrong to immediately be able to have that vulnerability to repair? And in my family, the vulnerability of repair requires coming to the heart. It requires coming to the heart because, when the injury is there, it hurts our hearts, when it's family and we're close to, people and in our communities, it hurts our heart. We care. It comes from a place of hurt that we then become that aggression. I always share about that fight, that aggression response, lateral aggression comes from underneath that either extreme hurt or extreme fear. Anger is a response emotion. Hurt and fear are the source of that. So when we dig deeply in our heart and we know where that hurt and fear comes from, and we can speak from that place of vulnerability, then we can repair better. And so to repair better is a generational change. I see it in my family to realize that I spoke in maybe an aggressive way to my sons or whatever that is, to go towards my heart and right away recognize that that came from a hurt or a fear, usually fear with my caring about my family so deeply, and then to apologize. True apology comes from vulnerability. And for some of us in our families that we grew up with, there was never that vulnerability to be able to repair relationship. And we as parents have to teach our children. We have to model that. We have to model repairing better. So to be able to repair better changes the generational chains of developmental trauma, aggressive response. And can change an entire family line, that when we realize that we made a mistake, to go with that vulnerability and say, "I'm sorry," from our heart. And again, sorry is only words. The actions from there, I will do my best to do it differently from here forward. And if I make a mistake again, I will do everything I can to respond more quickly and repair faster. So I'll say about that much to all of you. Thank you that follow this. It's great to be back. Needed some time away for a while, and I'm grateful to be back and have this space. And again, please share our YouTube channel. We want to get more subscribers there. All these Facebook Lives, a whole library of them there. Some of the great ones recently by Aaron Finley, one of our leaders in the Developmental Trauma Training Institute, on dealing with neuroatypical or neurodivergent individuals and how that's traumatizing in the educational system and in life in general. Perry Clark, our African American male, one of our BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, Persons of Color leaders, did a great one. We had some problems with the Facebook Live feed, but it lives in the YouTube channel, so please go there and watch that profound talking to our relatives that are LGBTQIA. And how that is, and also being a black male, being in this world and growing up in this world. Some wonderful material there. Please share it widely. Share it with, when it touches your heart, share it with somebody that you're thinking about. That's how we can help support each other and help each other heal. And last but not least, Digging Roots Foundations, our online course. Our first cohort start this week. We're excited for the people that are signed up and enrolled in it. It's not too late. If you want to jump in last minute, just come into the cohort anyways and join that cohort and watch the videos later, and do the coursework later. It's okay. You're never too late. And in that, we're grateful for all the support and the movement that's happening with the Developmental Trauma Training Institute and all the organizations that support our work and presentations that we're asked to do, etc. So thank you to you all. Thank you to you all that subscribe and follow us and share this information. We heal this world one relationship at a time. People get overwhelmed by so much struggle that's going on in this world, but one relationship at a time. If you heard something in here that somebody needs to hear, share it with them, to gift them that information. that higher understanding can really change their lives in a good direction, and it might even heal generations ahead of them. So thanks again for joining. Put lateral violence aside and meet each other with compassion in a heart-focused place. That's our solution for this lateral aggression concept that I'm talking about. Thanks for joining. Have a beautiful day, everybody. And same place, same time next week. I'll be over in Wisconsin, I believe, at that time. Take care.